Janice, just graduated in May, and I have or had $300,000 in student loans.
Slow down just a second.
Okay.
You said $70,000 a year.
That's with room and board, yes.
Okay. And so for 4 years, we're going to have $280,000 invested to be a gifted tuba player.
I know.
Sure. I have $200,000 of student loan debt, and unfortunately not a doctor or lawyer. I just got a business degree from a private school, and I'm currently making $45,000 a year just with my main job. I also have 2 part-time jobs. I'm at a point where even if I live on rice and beans and rice, it'll take me 10 years to get out of this hole. And so I have a shovel problem, and I don't really know where to go with my career. Mm-hmm. I'm barely making it. I owe so much student loan debt.
How much other student loan debt do you have? Not counting this $1,300.
$62,000.
Yeah, that's overwhelming. Making 19. And what other? So you have $300,000 of credit cards and personal loans.
We have about 335,000 student loans and about 136,000 in credit cards, 44,000 personal loans, and 35,000 car loans.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay. So what in the world? Okay. Yep. And pray tell, why did it take $550,000 to be an MD to do family practice?
I have about $175,000 with private student loans and federal student loans combined. I'm a high school English teacher. I've been doing it for about 3 years. And I just really need to know what my next step is because I'm in way over my head.
Calling in because I graduated recently from dental school in 2014. Have about $309,000 in dental school debt.
I'm $451,000 in total debt.
The minimum for his first year is $120.
Mm-hmm. And how much student loan debt does he have?
$480.
Good Lord! To be a dentist?
I know you were going to say that. Yeah, it's a private school.
Jeez.
Loan mess. I racked up $385,000 in student loans.
Goodness! For what? Are you a doctor or a lawyer?
So collectively, me and my wife are $460,000 in debt.
And so what's happened in a weird sense is that the administrators have conspired to steal the future earnings of their students. And then you can't declare bankruptcy. So to me, it's indentured servitude.
Well, you can't declare bankruptcy on student loans.
Right.
That's a very important distinction.
That's right. You cannot declare bankruptcy on student loans. So you think about that. You tell me what difference there is between that and indentured servitude.
Well, it's just so strange that these sort of courses and these sort of ideologies are thriving in universities. And it's really disconcerting to someone who has children. Mm-hmm. And you know that your children are going to go there and they're going to be exposed to these ideas.
You know, I think that.
Wow!
I think
a
that
guy
the
who used to teach at Harvard just says send him to trade school.
I think the universities. I think the universities. I think you can make a reasonable case that the universities do more harm than good now. I hate to say that.
The secular intellectual, in most instances, is an idiot.
The story. I'm your host, Richard Wolff. I've been a professor of economics all my life.
You had to have a college degree or a graduate degree to think Stalin was a good man.
There are Marxist parties, Marxist unions, Marxist intellectuals, Marxist journals, Marxist newspapers, and yes, Marxist governments scattered around the world. The development of Marxism is uneven. In some cases, it surges forward, then it fades. Often when it fades, the people who don't like it imagine it's disappeared, only to reappear once again, because it's a kind of shadow of capitalism. It's capitalism's most profound criticism.
You don't understand the power of compounding. You start out with a small loan. You never pay it back because of, not making money, okay? Because I do primary care, mostly. And I'm billing insurance, and the reimbursements are like this. I'm just saying. Next thing you know, it's snowballed into a Death Star-style default of the galaxy. I don't even know. I drive a Jeep Wrangler. A Wrangler. It's not even new.
And when I was at Columbia, that was where I went to graduate school, School of International Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I studied Russian and Arabic and Hebrew, and because I was in the Middle East and Soviet studies. And I was stunned at the idiocies. I was taught then men and women are basically the same.
I remember the Vanity Fair cover dropping, a bit like Dan Wootton in the
It's kind of one of those moments everybody remembers where they were.
Right. I was taught the Soviet Union and the United States were equally responsible for the Cold War. Truman was a moral equivalent to Stalin when I went to Columbia. This is not new. It's gotten worse, but it's not new.
I'm sure you do. There's also a gigantic financial stake, the amount of money that you're...
Well, and this is especially the case in the U.S. I mean, one of the things that's happened over the last 30 years is that the proportion of university expenditures that's gone to the administration has massively increased.
And a young woman comes up and she says, she's a doctor. She graduated medical school. She's very happy. She's practicing in a community health center, loves what she's doing. She said, Bernie, I got to tell you, though, I am $300,000 in debt for having gone to medical school. I couldn't believe it. I was in Iowa, a young woman, $400,000 in debt. This is not unusual for medical schools and dental schools. And, ordinary people, $50,000, $100,000 for going to college or getting a master's degree.
See, I'm a little tired of everybody talking about forgiving student loans and making student loans bankruptable without first doing away with the problem. I admit that the student loan problem is a huge issue. But if it's such a bad thing that we've done to all these young people, why are we not presenting legislation to stop it? Because the only reason there's so many student loans is they're federally insured. The first thing we should do is stop federally insuring student loans. Immediately, right now.
Our federal government out of the business of subsidizing and pushing this problem and getting involved everywhere from the social studies and the political correctness and progressivism. We have to get the government out of it because this wouldn't have happened. There wouldn't have been this much debt. Of course, if there hadn't been a Federal Reserve System, they always have to have easy credit. Oh, yes, they need it, and we're going to take care of all these students that can't afford college. Of course, now they can't afford it because the price is up, and that was created by government, the guaranteed loan programs and what the Congress does along with, the Federal Reserve creating the credit, sort of like the housing bubble.
And 17 years later, I did go to college. But I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was, spending all of the money my parents had saved their entire life. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay.
Here, my question for you: do you think a bachelor's degree, with your experience with college and everything, do you think a bachelor's degree is a necessary key to attaining success?
Ooh, I am not your role model on this one. Yeah, absolutely. Stay in school.
America's better. The world is better. And stay with me now. Race relations are better since I graduated. That's the truth. If you had to choose one moment in history in which you could be born and you didn't know ahead of time who you were going to be, what nationality, what gender, what race, whether you'd be rich or poor, gay or straight, what faith you'd be born into, you wouldn't choose 100 years ago. And anything that spreads around the world that quickly to so many different cultures will, of course, produce different interpretations. No one should ever tell you that Marxism is such and such, because it is a contested idea. Marx's writings are literature that people interpret and understand in different ways. Much as the socialist tradition is a tradition of people who mean very different things by that term, the same applies to Marxism.
The American people understand that Trump is a phony, that Trump is a pathological liar and a racist.
Student loan debt. I'm going to work to fix it because it's outrageous what's happening. It's not right, and we're going to work very, very hard to get it fixed. But we're going to start with 43 million people in the United States are currently working to pay off student loans, and we'll be talking about that very soon.
If you had to choose a time to be, in the words of Lorraine Hansberry, young, gifted, and black in America, you would choose right now.
It's a terrible thing to say that the universities may do more harm than good, and I haven't come to that conclusion lightly.
Well, there's
and I
also,
hate to say it.
I'm sure you do.
But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you.
It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting.
This is a 21st century bicycle that amplifies a certain intellectual ability that man has. And I think that after this process has come to maturity, the effects that it's going to have on society are actually going to far outstrip even those that the petrochemical revolution has had.